Hey guys, it's Frank and Kevin from Cruising with Wheels.
You know what I was thinking about the other day?
What?
That you're old.
What?
And that gave me an idea for a video.
Okay.
How the cruising industry has changed over the last 40 years.
Oh God, and boy has it changed.
So, you know, the first thing I think about when I think about the cruise industry changing is the technology advances that they've made, right?
Right.
So things like...
Well, the ships keep getting bigger.
Well, they keep getting bigger and more stable.
Right.
So the one thing I think of is, like, you know, the new bow thrusters that they have.
Right. All that new technology for stabilizers and thrusters and all those things that we don't see underneath that maneuver that ship.
It's not just one big propeller like on the Titanic.
I know.
Another thing I think of that's kind of innovative.
That crazy thing.
The crazy bartender,
right, the robotic
bartender,
arm.
Which, you know, Royal has on their ships. You know, another is the studios.
Yeah.
They've made big advancements.
Yes, not their traditional kind of one-size-fits-all cabin. And they've really, throughout the 40 years or whatever, have stepped up their game in terms of inside balconies and all these different levels of suites and ship within a ship kind of thing, like NCL's Haven. I mean, really wild.
Now, not only have they gone leaps and bounds with innovation, but they've gone leaps and bounds with food, people.
Right. The major culinary reinventions regarding all the great food you have on board.
And gone are the days of those midnight buffets.
I
It
know.
was all about access,
Oh,
right?
right. It was all about when people said, I'm going on a cruise, you know, that meant I am going to stuff my fat face 24/7 until they roll me off the ship.
And speaking of food and how things have changed, gone are the days of the old-time sit-down dinner, dress up in your finery.
Yes, the stuffy sit-down at the same table with the same people that you have to eat together. And, maybe you don't like those people.
Now, it's nice to be nostalgic about the Love Boat. I love watching the Love Boat, but things are not that way anymore.
They're not.
Now, we have things like healthy choices.
You notice, I have to say, you see on all the menus, gluten-free, vegan, lactose, heart healthy with, you see all those symbols down the line on all the different items to choose from.
And back in the day, you would be sitting down at the same dining room with the same people at the same set time.
Right.
And now we have all these selections of specialty restaurants like Teppanyaki, La Cucina.
Yeah, you got Brazilian.
Jamie's Italian.
Right, all the Italian, the Brazilian, the Asian, the wonderful steakhouses. It's just crazy.
And, the pioneers in that whole movement to not having a set time dining and having lots of specialty restaurant choices was Norwegian Cruise Line. And that was one of the major reasons why we started to cruise with them.
I mean, do you remember back decades ago when you were having your dinner on board a cruise ship and the biggest whoop dinner you ordered was the prime rib? Oh my gosh.
I love prime rib.
I know you love prime rib, but nowadays, that prime rib dinner, that's nothing compared to the culinary treats they offer now. Chef's table, right? Where, that's, a select group of people.
Well, I think Chef's Table took the place of the Captain's Dinner.
Dinner, right. With the cup.
Because they really don't do that as much anymore.
I know. So, wow, food has definitely changed. So let's talk about the next thing that has made major strides in the last 40 years. And that's all the activities on board the ship.
I know. Really, back in the 70s, it was all about going to a lounge.
Listen to some tacky velvet-suited lounge singer.
Maybe watching some Las Vegas style review.
Right. Or, going to tomorrow's cha-cha dance lessons. Or
They really didn't have the
shuffleboard and bridge.
They really didn't have the theaters
Yeah.
of today. And, so the massive, huge modern ships of today have, lots of activities to do that the ships from the 70s and 80s really didn't have.
Didn't even think of.
Things like the Flow Rider wave machine.
Giant water slide parks right on board.
Zip lining. Who would have thought?
I know. Wine tasting.
Rock climbing.
Cutting edge spa treatments.
Ropes courses.
Giant IMAX theaters.
High-end boutiques like Chanel and Givenchy.
Acting classes to go to with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Ooh. Cooking classes.
Go-karts.
Don't forget laser tag.
And the infamous skydive simulator.
Now, we think that this has everything to do with Disney entering the cruise game back in 1998, because all the other cruise lines since then have really stepped up their game for that wow factor.
Yeah, they were like, look at them. What can we do? And then somebody else went, well, look what they're doing. What can we do? And it's just been a roller coaster of innovation.
Speaking of roller coasters,
yes.
That's something we haven't included. They're working right now on putting a roller coaster on a cruise.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be it's just never ending what they're gonna come up with. Who wouldn't want to go on a cruise?
And speaking of innovations, right? Because to get these new activities on these ships, they've had to make them bigger and bigger and bigger.
You can't have all this stuff on some tiny little boat.
People think that like Titanic was big.
Titanic was big of that day.
Right. It was 882 feet long and carried 2,566 passengers. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to Royal Caribbean's Harmony of the Seas, which is 1,188 feet long and carries 5,494 passengers.
She is a big girl.
She's a big girl. She got a big butt. I like big butts and I cannot lie.
So the ships got bigger as they were introducing all these additional restaurants, all these additional activities. I mean, you just had to.
Right.
But then again, you've got some cruise lines that have stayed the traditional smaller ships because of the intimacy, the exclusivity, and really the one-on-one service that they want to provide the higher-end cruise lines.
The higher-end cruise lines like Seabourn, Regent Seven Seas, Crystal, Oceania, Silver Seas.
Yeah, they stayed at the 400 to 1,200 passenger capacity.
And it's really nice, and it makes it worth the money.
Right.
But traditionally, back in the 70s, 40 years ago, most of the ships that were sailing were that size.
Right. Yeah, kind of crazy. And then they got bigger, and then somebody said, you know what? Bigger isn't always better.
I know.
We can do other things and have great experiences and offer this, and this, and we don't have to have a mega ship to do it.
There was such an insurgence for a while of making them bigger and bigger and bigger. And now, like you said, we're seeing them get smaller.
A rollback. And a perfect example to that is Norwegian Cruise Lines.
Right. They have they've signed a contract for making the Leonardo class ship.
Right. Now they went from their, they have their Jewel class ships, which is like around what, 2,500?
2,500 to 3,000.
Yeah, but then they did the mega ships, the Bliss, the Joy, where they
The Encore.
Yes, which is coming out, and where you're talking like what, close to 5,000,
6,000 passengers.
and then they're like, for them, that's the last of the mega ships because now, like you said, they're going to do what they call the Leonardo class ships, which are going to be the mid-range of what, 3,000,
3,300.
Yeah. So Jewel, Leonardo, and then the Mega. So they've covered all three bases.
And
Kudos.
I think this is where Carnival has done a really good job because a lot of their ships are the smaller or medium-sized ships.
Right.
So
we've been on the Victory, the Conquest, the Valor.
And they're all, about 3,000
Right.
passengers.
Now we want to do the Mardi Gras. We want to do the Horizon. Those are larger.
You just need to get better with your handicap accessibility, Carnival.
Please, we want you to.
And speaking of accessibility, back in the 70s, 40 years ago, nobody was thinking about accessibility.
But they weren't.
If you were in a wheelchair or have crutches or had a disability, you were pushed aside and hidden away in some closet someplace.
You had to bring helpers with you. You had to bring aides with you to carry you, pick you up, and move you. They didn't have what they have now, which is the ramps, the handicap accessible cabins.
The open door openers?
Yes, where you push the automatic door opener and the door opens up for you and you can wheel yourself in or come with your electric scooter. I mean, nobody thought of that way back when.
And,
the bathrooms.
Well, I was thinking of the smaller ships. The smaller ships that have decks that you can't access without going upstairs. Now, that's the thing of the past. Usually there's
an elevator.
There's an elevator to get to every deck that you need to get to. Now, it's not just all about accessibility that the changes that the cruise lines have made over the last 40 years. It also has to do with the size of things, right? Because I think, frankly, people are getting bigger. But anyways.
What are you trying to say?
Well, not you per se.
What you trying to say, Willis?
But looking back at a brochure from the 70s, as you can see, this looks pretty small. And it was about 140 square feet for an inside cabin.
And then we're touting that as, luxury.
Right. And nowadays, an inside cabin is more about 185 square feet. And as we all know, size does matter.
Yeah, people, I know. But they've added in this cabin more closet space, drawers, organizational desks. So, they've stepped up.
Back in the day, you might not even have had a television.
Right.
But it was still considered a luxury, right?
Absolutely. And don't even get me started when we get into electronics, cell phones and computers, because nobody thought of USB ports back then. Or computers weren't even in, thought of.
You'd be lucky if you had a hairdryer in your cabin, right? So nowadays, you do find those amenities, the flat screens, the mini fridges, the safes, the telephones, the hair dryers.
A plug-in for electric shavers in the bathrooms. And then not only is it just a regular stateroom, but the balconies and all the different levels of suites they offer.
Oh my gosh, like that new family suite that's being offered with a slide.
I know.
I mean, can you imagine having a slide in your stateroom?
Right, and when we were on the NCL Jade, we were lucky enough to get to meet friends that had the garden villa. So, I mean, my gosh, things have changed in terms of accommodations.
Now, you're saying that things have changed with the staterooms. That should be obvious. But also, the entertainment, the quality of the entertainment has changed.
I want to see a show, and I want to be wowed. Wow me.
Now, back in the days, you'd have, the dancing girls.
Right.
We kind of joked about that a little earlier.
The showgirls.
But the way that they would entertain their guests would be, the hairy chest contests, Some of the cruise lines still do that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
wish you'd change
I
that.
know, my God. Oh, you always have like the magic show, which they still have some magic shows, comedy shows. They still do that. But in the theater,
The theater
It
is
is where
really
it's all changed.
is where
Yeah.
it really, really, really has changed. And recently on like the Carnival Vista, let's say, they have LED lighting and lasers, and it's really changed how performers can step up their game.
Right.
Right?
And they've changed from, a lot of them have changed from going from actually building sets to
Technology-based sets.
Right. And-
Like Royal Caribbean,
Right.
they have that on some of their ships. They have a room that transforms
Right.
simply by the television screens changing. It's really quite amazing. Other cruise lines like Disney employ Oscar-winning songwriters to do original production numbers for them.
Right. And ships, these cruise lines, the cruise lines have partnered, like NCL partners with Nickelodeon.
Right.
Disney, obviously, with all their Disney characters. And so you have all these themes going on for the kids.
Right.
For their entertainment. And it's not just adult cruising, it's family cruising.
It's family cruising. Cruising has changed.
Right.
Cruising used to be mostly for, well, starting out when cruising started, it was to get from point A to point B.
Right.
Right? And then it evolved into, this is going to be a vacation experience.
Right, and it was considered honeymoon. It was considered old
cruising,
people cruising.
middle age.
Yeah, it's like, well, when we retire, Mary and I are going to go on a cruise. Yeah, it's like, it's not that anymore.
And
a
now
cruise
it's
is a
about-
regular vacation.
Right. It's about going and having a good time.
Right.
It's about what you want to make it.
Right.
Which it never was like that. It
Right.
was always very structured. Lunch is being served on the Lido deck.
Right.
Kind of thing. And with the evolution of more and more people going on cruises, we move to safety, right?
Yeah.
Safety has become priority one.
It has. And it absolutely, a lot of changes were made after the Costa Concordia disaster.
Right. There's been
yeah.
some pretty big cruise disasters over the years, but two really stick in the mind. The first being Titanic in 1914.
Right.
And that got the cruise industry thinking about lifeboats, right? And making sure that there's enough, and making sure that there's enough life vests or life jackets on the boats. And then fast forward, the biggest changes in recent years have been since the Costa Concordia, with things like having cameras on the sides of the ships that sense when people are falling or jumping or fire suppression and lifeboats.
The mandatory safety drills. Safety drills that the crew actually has to participate, but then again, the passengers, before you even set sail, you have to go to muster drill and watch that presentation.
Also, changing how they construct the ships.
Right.
So things that you don't even think about as a passenger. How are the watertight compartments operated and changed, right? They've thought about things about, what if the ship does tip? Right.
And there have been instances where you see it in the news, the ship for some reason has tipped 45 degrees over, and everybody goes, you've all seen those videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to be on one of those.
And then there's a new manual called Bridge Resource Management that successfully increases the safety through enhanced communications with the ship's officers. Just overall, the communication, the construction, and how they plan for an emergency has evolved and changed since that disaster.
And the technology in terms of weather. I mean, we all know when you watch the Titanic movie, You know that they kept giving that captain warnings about icebergs, and he was like, yeah, that's nice. He wasn't paying attention. He was retiring, I think, so he really didn't care. But, everybody died pretty much.
And I'm sorry, that Costa Concordia captain, he had no business getting as close to land as he has, as he did.
Yeah. So always, there's always, seems to involve in every situation in life, human error. Human error in everything that occurs. It can't be helped.
Right, but that's why the cruise lines have been implementing all this technology.
Yes.
Because,
Crap happens.
yeah.
So we want to thank you for joining us and letting us tell you what life was like 40 years ago and how far we've come in today's cruise industry.
So we want to remind you that we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Frank has his Cruise Chat Facebook group, so please find him there and
Click to join
the community. But until next time, we want to remind everybody to always
travel safe
and cruise often.